Hello, ladies and gentlemen. I'm your host, Mike D of the Father Talks podcast. I am here with Mr. Duncan Rich. Uh, I'm excited to have you on the show. Okay, listen, I'm gonna get right into it. I want you to tell us everything that you're doing. Just again, you've got your headline on your profile when I was looking at it. Is uh, the problem is the model, not the man, and that just really jumped out at me. I'm like, wow, that that is something. Also, when I reached out to you, that was one of my major things. I'm like, you know what? I got to get him on the show. We got to talk. I want to find out everything that's bouncing around in his head, and you know, how can we do more for men? And again, before we get too deep in the woods, I am not anti-woman, not at all. I am just very pro men getting us, taking care of our mental health, taking care, putting us in a better position in our families with our kids, allowing men to be able to express ourselves in ways that we have never been able to do, and it being okay for us to be angry, like we were talking just before we got started. You know, I want those things to be okay. And not everybody just constantly running around. Oh, he's just angry all the time. He's this, he's that. And just people not understanding, you know, the man himself. So I'm going to give you the floor. Please tell us about the Mel program.
Awesome. Well, first of all, Mike, thanks so much for having me. I really appreciate
Absolutely.
this
Thank you.
opportunity to get to talk to you. Um, yeah, like we were just talking about before, there's not a lot of sympathy for the struggles of men. And, I've even heard in quite a few times in many of the conversations, well, men are responsible for all the problems in the world, so, you know, now you guys are having a hard time. And, um, what I say to that is, men are not bad. We're not broken. We're not,
Yeah.
defective. We've inherited this model,
Okay.
um, this paradigm for masculinity or for how to be a man is very narrow. It's
Right.
incredibly narrow. And, um, the solutions that we have for bringing out more of yourself are all very touch and go. They don't it's very hard to find something that makes lasting change. It's very hard to find something that can affect deep behavioral change in a way that lasts. So I run a company called Meld with my business partner, Owen Marcus. We work somatically, which means with the body. Soma is Greek for body. Somatic it's becoming kind of a buzzword now, but somatic just means of the body. So we work with the signals of the body to to get down underneath these patterns and behaviors that have been um, impacting how your life is going, essentially, patterns of dysregulation, patterns of disconnection, patterns of not being where you want to be, not being, patterns that keep you sort of adjacent to the thing that you want, or, sort of in the room, but not quite hitting where you really want to be and how you really want to be. Um, these are behavior patterns that are oftentimes, born out of early childhood, sometimes even earlier, but they are protective patterns that we formed when we were having an experience that was sort of too big for what we could handle. And
Mm,
so
okay.
we create a pattern out of avoiding feeling that discomfort. And so we then turn away from it, and we build patterns out of turning away from this discomfort. Even if the older we get, the more capacity we have to handle stress and to handle problems, but we still have these totally unconscious patterns of avoidance, of shutting down, or of blowing up, or of just reacting instead of responding, reacting in a kind of dysregulated way, when what we really want to do is respond in a way that is aligned with who we are and who we want to be. Um, so that's that's all to say, we created Meld to offer men training in how to understand, know more about themselves, know about where their patterns, where their behaviors come from. Something that's really, really common with a lot of men is just like, well, that's how it is. That's the way it is. This is
Ugh,
the way it is. That's the way it was for me. And that's the way it's going to be for you.
right.
And, suck it up. And
And that kinda hits home because literally everything you just said,
yeah,
I guarantee I have said 200 times in my lifetime. So, but yeah, okay, go
yeah.
ahead.
Listen, there's a time to power through. There's a time to, um, you know, like increase your ability to like work through pain and work through discomfort. And there's But that's can't be the only avenue, right? That can't be the only avenue of exploration, because then you just get this only hard, only impenetrable walls, and it's really hard to connect. It's really
Right,
hard to feel actual safety with someone like that. It's really hard um to feel this is a healthy place to be. This is generative, this is expansive, this is, you know able to um able to roll with sort of the mysteries and the unexpected, and whatever life is going to get you, whatever life is going to hand you, without sort of having to fit everything into this box. Well, here's what I can handle, so everything outside of that, I, we don't deal with it, we ignore it, or, it just runs us. And so, what I was saying before about those unconscious patterns where we don't get to respond the way that we want to respond, those patterns end up running us. They run our behavior. And then we're not in control. We're sort of at the whim of some old wound from, decades ago, decades
yes,
and decades ago. um, and then we keep repeating those patterns, and it keeps showing up in our life, and we keep responding or reacting in the same kind of way, and we just keep perpetuating this, um, hurt. And it hurts us first,
right.
and then the people around us as well.
Yeah, because I find that, and speaking for myself, I can't speak for everybody else, but it has taken me a great deal of time. I'm 52 now. It has taken me so much time to finally get in touch with the things that are issues in my life that I've never been able to articulate because I've never been in a safe place where I feel like I can express myself. Everything in my life has just been about powering through it. It is what it is. You know what? I'm responsible for this. I'm the head of this household. No matter what happens, I got to find the answers to whatever the issue is. And so no matter how it affects me emotionally, physically, or whatever, it is my job to make sure everything is fixed. I'll deal with my issues, my personal feelings at another date, if at all.
And that's and that's really common. I mean, that's part of the male archetype, is the provider, and there's nothing
Yes.
wrong with that. And we want to be able to protect and care for the people around us, and that's beautiful. That's We've always done that.
Right.
That's part of being a human man. um it's when we get stressed and when we get pushed beyond sort of our capacity, to do things in the way that we want to do them, when these patterns start really coming out of us. So, like, for example, when I am, when my son, he's not going to bed, I have a meeting that I got to get to. I'm running late. I'm like running hot, starting to be like, get in bed, buddy. It's time to get in bed. Um, I'm gonna lose it. And and then I can explode. I can, and this has happened. This happens. I'm just like, I get mad, I get angry, I start yelling, I hit the wall or something like that, and he gets scared. And when a young kid gets scared, you know, it's not they don't have the capability to understand what's going on or to um you know to soothe themselves. They
Yes.
need us to help soothe them. So then I have these old behaviors start coming out of me, and like my
Yep.
dad starts coming out of me, and
Right.
it's like, okay, wait a minute. And I love my dad. My dad is a great man. He's a great person. This is all of us. Okay, like
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
this is all of us for generations and generations and generations. um so quick thing I want to say about that is, like, this isn't this isn't my father's fault, right? This isn't his father's fault. This isn't my great grand, this is the system that we have created and that we have inherited. And so
Right.
this is this, and when a system needs to change, that's a really difficult thing to move. That's a really difficult to shift a paradigm, especially if you don't have a model for what you are trying to shift into.
See, now
So
that right there have I have wanted to be, and I don't consider myself a bad father. I have just had zero insight or zero help, as I was coming up. So I learned so many things on the fly, that looking back on them now, this might not have been the best way to handle this. Or, you know what, hey, had I been able, had I had another male figure that I could really lean on who was in a similar situation, or just had there been some resources for me, that I would be looking at, my life as, the whole picture in a different way. I mean, I have a great relationship with my kids, for the most part, and, when kids get older, they voice opinions about, hey, when I was growing up, this happened. I didn't particularly like it. And as a dad, you know, that hurts. But all I can do and all I've ever tried to do is just be better. Okay. I've realized that, certain things weren't ideal. But again, I was a young dad and just trying to figure it out.
yeah.
So this conversation for me is about other young dads or other men, you know, having a resource. And even if, again, I say this all the time, even if we only help one person, then guess what? We're off to a good start, because hopefully that one person tells somebody else.
Well,
So,
absolutely. You're absolutely right. And it's never too late to start showing up with your integrity and with
right.
vulnerability. I want to talk about vulnerability for a second. Vulnerability
Okay.
gets a bad rap.
Yeah. Especially
Vulnerability,
as it relates to men,
yeah.
and being vulnerable.
hmm Vulnerability. What you said right there about your kids coming to you with their experience and you making space for their experience, it takes a much stronger man to be able to do something like that than it does to get angry, yell, shout, make sure everything is fits into your box and make sure everything is in order and those kids don't talk back and all that. It takes a much stronger man to be able to look in the face of the thing, of the quote unquote wrong that he did, or the hurt that he's caused, or the mess that he has made, which we have all done. We all make a mess, and say, "Oh man, I made a mess. You're right. You are right. And here, I'm going to clean this up. I'm going to clean this up right now." And when you take ownership of, you know, of your actions and of your place in the world and where you have been and what your impact has been on the people around you, especially the people that you love, especially the people closest to you, when you get to
Exactly.
take ownership of that, that builds trust. That builds trust like nothing else can. They need to see that like that dad is a human. They need to see that dad has space for their experience, which might be different than his. Um, and so what you are modeling for them is openness, vulnerability, and that's power. That's
Yeah.
strength. That's
And
also
hey,
saying that, like this doesn't throw me off. This isn't going to throw me off my horse. I get to stay and maintain who I am, who I want to be, even under stress or even under um, you know, less than ideal circumstances, I get to I get to maintain and I get to be who I want to be,
Mhm.
and that doesn't throw me off. That doesn't shake me. That doesn't get the better of me. I'm here for it, and I'll feel those things with you. And when I have the capacity to feel those things as a father, then the children just naturally start picking up on it, like, oh, okay, like we're doing this now. You know how children, they learn from experience with their father, and with both their parents and with the entire world. But if you start modeling this, like a different kind of openness, of vulnerability, a a new kind of strength, then they're just going to learn it naturally, automatically, because that's what kids do. And then you are changing the future. You are raising, like, more resilient, more more sort of like broader spectrum, broader scope people, that can handle more, and that can do more and have more ideas and bigger experiences.
Right. So, question: was there a moment where you knew, I can't keep living this way, and like, was there like it was just a moment where like, you know what, things have got to change. I've got to do something different.
I mean, I have a lot of those moments. I have those moments all the time. Yeah. And even still, as I've been on this path of this work for 10 years, I still, I feel like I sort of clear out a layer, or I clear out one floor, and then it's like, all right, now it's time to go see what's down below. And it just keeps going further and further, and I get more and more resilient. But absolutely, in my own life, so I grew up in Boston. I lived in New York City. I lived in Hong Kong. I lived on a school bus for a couple of years. I've been all over the place. Um, but I was 10 years ago, or more now, like 12 years ago, I was living in New York City, and I was an event producer. I was running music and art spaces, running nightclubs, producing events for big, brands, and huge parties and roller discos and weddings and all kinds of different stuff. Um, and my the woman who's now my wife, and um, we lost our apartment because, the turnover there is very real and kind of, definitely a thing. And so we lost our place. We were looking around for a new place. We decided to take a room in a friend's house in the Hudson Valley outside Woodstock, New York, and for a month, to just figure out what we were going to do next. We got up here, and I'm still here. It's an amazing, magical, beautiful place. And um it's you know it wasn't as expensive, it wasn't as hustle bustle, but I got up here, and there was quiet. I got up here and there was actual solitude. Not like, yeah, you're alone, but there's actually somebody on the other side of the wall. Like, no, like, you're alone.
Right.
You can be as loud as you want. And so in that stillness and in the quiet and in that space, I started encountering these parts of myself that, when I wouldn't avoid them, that were like asking for my attention. And, I had historically just put my head down into work, just work through it. Like, don't worry about that stuff coming up. The thing that matters is getting the money, and, proving yourself and making a name for yourself and all that. So when I was finally faced with this kind of slowness and stillness, all this stuff started bubbling up, of just like, oh, I am there are layers of myself that I'm barely aware of. And I had this feeling that this was really important. I was like, I want to be in truth. I want to be in what is what is real. I want to have that relationship with honesty and not be lying to myself. and thus everyone else around me about who I am and what I want and what I need and who and what I do. So I started on this journey of like facing some of that stuff without any tools, just like feeling it and allowing the stuff to come up. And I had a journal and I was writing about some stuff just as a way to process it. And I would talk to people, but a lot of the people that were interested in hearing about, um, kind of like these deeper layers that I was wrestling with, I didn't know what was going on. I didn't like, it's not like something I could neatly package and explain to someone. But as I'm wrestling with this stuff, I noticed that like the women are, they're down to have these conversations. It's a lot harder with the men. And sort of like, where are all the resources for men? Like, where are like the women sort of naturally support each other? There's a more natural ability to communicate, to process emotion, and to express even and let it go and
Yeah,
to release.
yeah,
But
and
for men, like
men
there's no
we're
one showing us how to do that.
but we're taught from an early age to kind of suppress, you know, certain types of emotion. So like if you see a little boy in a park, and maybe somebody does something to him and he's upset, well, the first thing parents do to him is, say, "Oh, you stop that crying," or you know
Hmm.
what, it's
You're okay.
instant, yeah, you're okay,
You're
or you know
okay.
what, you need to share, or you need
Hmm.
to share, but that same thing isn't taught to girls. So if a girl is, if something happens, she's allowed to express her emotion and
Hmm.
whatnot. So we're
Yeah.
taught at an early age to suppress all these feelings, or it's we're out of control. Just a little boy who uh, has something that does belong to him, and yeah, sharing is good, but not not at the expense of this child's emotional growth.
Oh, yeah. You don't have to share if you don't want to share. Learn what that's like too. You should learn when you tell a child that what they're feeling isn't real. When you tell a child that like that is clearly hurt, that they're okay, they tell themselves, they start to learn to cut off the feelings that they're having.
Yes,
They start to
yes,
learn to separate themselves from what is real for them. And we've all done that. We've all
right,
done that to ourselves and to each other. And especially, I'm 42, but my generation, our generation, that's a huge part of the, again, like the paradigm, the model that we've been given is you're okay, you know, or especially from parents, it could be like, you think that's bad. Like I had to walk to school uphill both ways in the snow,
yeah,
5 times a day, like that kind of stuff. And
right,
it's, but when you discredit something that a child is clearly telling you is real for them, it
yes,
severs their relationship with what is real for them. And then they start performing. And with
uh,
boys, that happens incredibly early. There's research that shows, I mean, it happens as early as sort of the situation dictates, but there's studies done, one I was reading recently, like by the ages of like preschool and kindergarten, boys have already done a fair amount of like shedding of what is theirs to in favor of the group or like the herd, which can be the family or it can be the class or it can be um the friend group, and that starts superseding, that starts taking the place of what that kid is actually experiencing. And so with my son, when who's 7 now, shout out Theo, when he when he has a problem, I hear it.
right,
It's nothing to me to hear it. I don't take it personally. I
right,
don't like this young kid who is learning how to just be in the world has a problem with something. That's not a reflection on me. Okay? I have voices in me that say like shut him up, like this isn't good, but I say with my with my tools and my skills and my training, I have different ways of regulating myself first. So I get to take care of myself first, because my initial reaction is like, oh God, like, here we go. Like, we're like, I feel like this kid is attacking me, so
Right.
unconsciously,
Right.
I feel attacked. And
Right.
so when I get to sort of, I get to, and then, so, and then the body takes over. Okay. That's that. And this is why we work with the body, because when stress hits, we start running programs that we're not in control of.
Okay.
There are parts of the brain and parts of the nervous system that operate below the level of consciousness that are just based on survival. Thinking about it, that in our evolution, that came way later. Surviving, that's one of the most elementary functions. And we share this part of our nervous system with all animals, or all mammals, all reptiles, and even like pre-reptilian organisms, that when there is a threat, you either fight it off, or you get out of there,
Right.
or you freeze, you shut down, you sort of shut down, prepare for death. And that's so that's
Not ideal.
fight, flight, freeze. Well, it's not ideal, um but it is a survival mechanism. So like, when when you are faced with an inescapable attack, what Peter Levine, founder of somatic experiencing, very, very cool modality, sort of akin to what we do. um when you are faced with an inescapable attack, you can't fight, you can't run, you start to have kind of an out of body experience. You start to shut down so it doesn't hurt. And that's your body protecting itself. That's your nervous system working perfectly to protect you. So when you start to shut down, and then, getting attacked by that bear is not going to hurt as much. You're not feeling every claw and every tooth. This is evolutionarily where it comes from. These days, we have freeze responses um, in all kinds of other settings, and they can be sort of like a functional freeze response, where we're not completely shut down, but a part of us is offline and gone. A part of us is just like out the door. Um, and so a freeze is actually a combination of high activation of like wanting to take action, wanting to fight back, or wanting to run to safety, which is a totally credible way to survive, by the way. It's not like the only thing we can do is fight. You can also, a great way to ensure your survival on a evolutionary in an evolutionary sense, is to just get out of there, get away from the threat. But when we can't do either of those, there's this energy of like, oh, I really need to like let this rise and like defend myself, or project my voice, or get scary, or just get out of there, but I can't. And then it's sort of contained by this energy of like, yeah, but what's the point? Then you start to learn this pattern of like, what's the point? It's just going to end like this. It's just going to go like that. And then you start applying that, in situations where it's not appropriate,
Right.
like where your physical survival isn't really at stake.
So, okay. So let me ask you a question. So I was looking through some of your work and everything, and you mentioned men aren't broken, they're just disconnected. Disconnected in what way exactly?
Well, disconnected in the exactly this kind of way, in the like, where parts of us are frozen, parts of us are offline.
Okay.
Like, so when we are when we're in that experience of, um well, so when we're children, that freeze response happens all the time, especially in our generation. You can't fight back to your parents, or to the bully, or to the bigger force. You can't like run away from your parents. I mean, you
And
can, but more commonly, like, there is a physical, biological love that keeps you close. And when you're and also, like, when you're 3 years old, you're not thinking, you might be like feeling the desire to like fight your parent, or to run away, but you're not going to. You're going to stay there. And so that becomes an inescapable attack. Like when you're getting yelled at, or when you're being punished for something. I remember growing up, I would get punished. I would learn that something that I did wasn't okay because I was already getting punished for it. Like that's how things were taught, is
Right.
like you did this, and now you're in trouble, one kind of trouble or another.
Well, right.
and and then I would say, like, oh, okay, I guess that's not an okay thing to do. Like that's how things were taught. And so when you're a child and you can't run, you're having this big experience. You like the emotions and the feelings and the energy inside you wants to fight back. Like that's kids. When you're born, you are perfectly able to express yourself. You are perfectly able to process what is going on. Not how we think about it, like that, well, that wasn't clear, but use your words and stuff like that. But a baby crying, like that's clear. That baby needs something, right? Like, and then as they start getting older and older, we start whittling away their ability and skills at communicating what they need because it's inconvenient for us, right?
Okay.
So we want to welcome those expressions from these kids and not take it personally, and not say like, oh, this baby is crying, like that means I'm a bad person, or that means I did something wrong. No, the baby
Right.
just needs their diaper changed, or they need food, or they need a hug, or like that's human. That's being human. That's what we are at our core, are these beings that want to connect, we want to express, and we want to be in community, and we want to be heard, and we want to be felt.
Okay. Outstanding. So moving forward, Mel emphasizes a bottom-up approach for fathers. Hearing that phrase for the first time, what exactly does that mean?
Yeah, great question. Um, so I'll start with the opposite, like a top-down approach.
Okay.
Like most, you know, most sort of talk-based therapy
Hmm.
is a is like, we call it top down. So you you have an understanding of what the problem is. You
Gotcha.
have an intellectual understanding of what the problem is, maybe even where it came from, and you might even have an intellectual understanding of what you need to do in order to overcome that problem. But after a week or two of trying, it starts to fade. It starts to, you start to lose the inspiration, lose the
Oh, no worries.
motivation. It loses its luster. And what is still there are those old nervous system patterns. So,
Okay.
so we go in. So the top down approach is kind of intellect first. Here's what I should do. Okay, well, how come it's a month later and how come I'm still in the same place? Okay, so a bottom up approach is addressing those patterns that got you there in the first place, addressing the cause of, you know, my, you know, my tendency to believe that, I'm not safe, my tendency to believe that nothing is going to be okay, all of these sort of like these are my personal sort of like behavior patterns from my childhood, and from my mother. Her parents were they're Holocaust survivors. They survived
Okay.
concentration camps. So they're born sorry, so they get liberated, and immediately my mother is born to two people who just stepped out of like the one of the most horrible situations in recent history. And they moved to Queens, and so she grows up in Queens, and you know they're doing their best, they're doing amazing, they're doing a lot of great, and it's really hard. There's a lot to overcome. one of my grandparents did better with sort of shutting the trauma of that experience away than the other one did. And so that comes out, and that impacted my mother. And then my mother has that, has these beliefs of that are passed down from her parents, such as like, it's not okay. They're coming to get us. Hide who you are. You have to be, you have to, don't let them know. Don't let
Right.
them know. Just stay the course, be good, like like do not rock the boat, um because like, my family was wiped out. Most of my family was wiped out in this event, so like this is a matter of survival. Now she doesn't consciously believe that,
Right.
but
But
there are
being
there are patterns and there are behaviors that are rooted in that fear,
right.
that that then I go and inherit sort of like the next generation of those patterns. And I love my mother. She's a great person. She's incredible. I've learned so much incredible stuff from her. And it's human to have these behaviors and to pass down what was done to you until, and so that's part of why like it's not our fault, like men are not bad. we we are not it's not our fault, but it is our responsibility if we want to do something about it.
Right.
So
And I think that's a big thing right there. I can accept the fact that something's not my fault, but I do want to take full accountability and say, hey, you know what? I understand that I am having this issue. I know I am not responsible for all of it, but I need to find a way to be better. Because one of my biggest things is, especially becoming a dad, I wanted to do things that my parents didn't do for me, and that was openly express love. While I know my parents love me. That's not a question, but they didn't express it. If we weren't sick or there wasn't an injury, unfortunately, with my family, there's somebody didn't die or something. You don't hear about the emotional part, the love part. We're not a kissy, huggy family, and that was something with my own kids I wanted to change. I wanted my kids to never think for a second that I did not love them. The mix of that, unfortunately, is that while I was better on with that aspect, I was just as bad when it came to being a strict parent. And granted, we've had some things happen in the family. I almost lost my oldest daughter, and that shaped how I parented after that.
yeah.
You know, so that fear of almost losing a child shaped the way I parented, and it came out as anger, but it was fear. So my kids always had to check in. If they wanted to go somewhere, they had to go in pairs. If it was always checking in, every hour or so. And it seemed like I didn't trust them. But it was that I was fearful of something happening to them and me not being able to be there to help them. So that those are the types of things I feel like a lot of fathers are dealing with, and we don't we don't get the opportunities to express ourselves, or we don't get the help that we need to express ourselves. So
and
like,
and then you get to say like and then it's like, well, dad's angry. It's like, but do you have the ability to then separate out what's actually happening for you? And you get to say, look, hun, uh, I know that I like raised my voice earlier and I lost it a little bit. I'm sorry about that. What's really happening for me is I'm so scared because of what
right.
happened to your sister. I'm
But
so scared.
that's the thing right there, is that's the thing that we don't, that is a skill that we don't, as men, we need to learn early. It took me, I'm 52, and I'm, most my kids are, for the most part, are all adults. I've got two in the house still, but this is something I'm just learning, that I'm hoping that by this conversation, other men will get in touch with this sooner, so I don't want to say they lose relationships, but so they have better understanding, as fathers, even with their spouses, that, I'm not mad, you know, it's my fear comes out this way, and we don't know how to we don't know how to say, I'm not angry, I'm afraid, because that is vulnerability that we're not used to being able to
Right.
express.
Or like maybe I am angry and afraid, or both, or I'm
Yeah, sure.
afraid and I'm sad, or I'm I'm afraid and I have shame around being afraid and not being able to be the kind of dad that I have in my mind about who I want to be, you know,
Right.
and being able to check in with your body and know what it's telling you about, um like, oh, like I've got this feeling in my chest, it's like it's squeezing, oh, that's like this, just like this fear, like what am I scared, oh, I'm scared of this, or um where it's like I just feel so down or heavy or pulled down, like, oh, I'm feeling sad. Yeah, I'm sad because, this horrible thing just happened or almost happened or whatever
Right.
it was. Like, oh my God, like it's terrifying. And when you acknowledge these feelings, they get lighter. When you get to honor these things that are just, all of our emotions serve a purpose. They're there for a reason. They're not
Well,
there by accident, right? So you acknowledge the feelings and you acknowledge these emotions, and they essentially go, thank you. Now I'm going to ease up a little bit. I've been begging for your attention. I've been begging for you to like pay attention to me and to let this out, and let it out in whatever way it sort of needs to come out. But
so, and this is all on the topic of vulnerability, you know. So, and when us as men, myself included, when we hear, "Hey, be vulnerable," it's okay to be vulnerable. I hear weakness. I hear, hey, and I will tell you, I've said this myself, when I've been extremely upset or I've allowed something to get to me, it is, hey, don't act like a little bitch. You can handle this. So how do we redefine vulnerability, you know, so it works for men?
Well, so I like to call it, we like to call it assertive vulnerability. So
Okay.
it's it's not it takes it out of the realm of weakness, but
Okay.
it feels risky, right? You're just like, if you touch into if so first you slow down. First you have to get out of the performance layer, okay? Like, I'm hard, everything is fine. Ah, everything is fine, like that kind of like this, like, no one believes you, man, but they're
Right.
going to start leaving you alone. So
Right.
you slow down and you get to say, like, okay, like, what's going on under here? And we do that through, as I said, through the body. So you ask a man how he's feeling, he's fine, good. And you don't really get much of an answer. You ask a man, like, what's he feeling in his body? Then you kind of have a gateway into the unconscious and something else.
Okay.
So what this looks like is kind of like, okay, my mouth is dry. My chest is my chest is like racing. There's a racing in my chest. My arms are kind of activated. I can feel a buzzy kind of energy tingling thing going throughout me. Um, okay, I'm feeling excited. I'm on a podcast with Mike.
Yeah.
I'm getting to speak about what I get to do. I'm feeling nervous because, the stakes are kind of high. I'm, you know, so I get to sort of look into what the physical sensations are and then what they mean or what they correlate to. And then, do I want to share that though? Well, that feels really risky. Okay. So feels risky. There's fear there. I have fear around it. What's the antidote to fear? The antidote to fear is action, is taking action. The way that you destroy fear is by doing it. Do the thing, you know, safely. If it's not like, I'm afraid to jump off this cliff, there's a good reason for that. If you're like, well, I'm afraid that my bro is going to tell me that I'm a pussy if I tell him that I'm sad that I was fighting with my wife, you know, does that feel risky? Well,
For us, yes.
yeah. So you assert, you lean in, and you assert yourself with vulnerability. You say, hey, bro, like, I gotta, like, I know we're talking about the game or whatever, but there's something that's really going on for me.
Mhm.
And if this is a good friend to you, that person is going to, you're going to drop what we call a depth charge, which is like, you are making it okay to go from here down to here. You're making it okay to go into the deeper stuff. And they're going to be so relieved because they've got deeper stuff too. That's the other thing. So all right. So let me wrap this up first. Assertive vulnerability. You lean in, you take the risk. Yeah, it feels risky. Do it. Be a man. Do it. Share the thing. Like, share the thing that's really there for you. Do it.
Okay.
And and then you make it okay for your bro to also exist on that level of his experience also.
Right.
And so one of the reasons we work in groups, because the power of men sitting together in a men's group, or in a training, or even just going deep together, the power of that cannot be overstated. There's no substitute for that. We cannot learn, we can learn a lot about emotionality from women, but they can't teach us how to be men. They can't teach us how to be open, vulnerable, strong men, right? Like, able to take on more. You know, we have to do that with each other. And then you then start co-regulating with the other men in your life, and they perceive you as real, and they perceive
Okay.
you as trustworthy, and they're like, you know what? Duncan made it okay. Mike made it okay to go here. So I'm going to go here. I'm going to get this off my chest, and I'm going to feel better now too. And man, I've been holding on to this. Actually, I've been holding on to this for a really, really long time. And I just don't have anywhere safe to, I don't have anywhere safe to share it, you know?
Yeah.
So
So okay, go ahead.
go
Sorry.
ahead. No, go ahead. Go ahead. Go
Oh,
ahead.
no, no, no. I because I wanted to make sure we covered this before we close. Um, where can listeners learn more about the core program and the core program, excuse me, at Meld?
Sure. Yeah. So our website, meld.community, MELD.community. We've got all our programs up there. We've got Core, which is a 10-week men's group plus training. So
Okay.
we put you in a men's group and we train you about the nervous system. We train you into what is happening in your body, um, or what is happening in the body of someone else that you're interacting with, when stress is applied, or just at any given time of any given day, because this stuff is constant. It's all the time. That's the modern life. Like, this is always happening. Um, so we teach because men love to know, they love to understand, and that helps build trust, and that's cool. Um, so we teach, but then we practice. And so when you practice, you embody it. You get to use your nervous system, you get to use your story, and you get to use what's really happening for you, and you get to work on that stuff. And when you this is what we were talking about, top down versus bottom up. When you have a felt understanding of these tools and these skills, then you really have them. You really have them at your disposal, and you start living differently. When you have just an understanding of them, that understanding kind of fades if there's no practice. So we
Okay.
practice. Um,
Outstanding.
and that's the core program. It's 10 weeks. We open it a couple times a year. We're running one right now. We'll run another one in the spring 2026, probably another one in the fall 2026. We gather for in-person retreats. We have one coming up in February in Joshua Tree. And this is like 4 days. Put your phone in the room, and we come together, we slow down, and we train this method that my partner Owen has developed over 40 years, for slowing down, opening up, processing what's going on for you, and putting yourself back together with more of who you really are.
Yeah.
That's February. I don't know if this will be out by then, but that's February 19th to 22nd in Joshua Tree. I
But
can
yeah,
even give you.
just This one I will make sure that this is out long before then.
Oh, cool.
Um,
I'll give you a code so your listeners can like get a little discount or something on that. And then we also train therapists and coaches to work this method into their practice. We have a training called the integrated training that we've run a few times in the past, and we're going to run again this year, I think. Um, Not I think we are going to run it again this year. And then we also do one-on-one coaching. Myself, I do one-on-one coaching. My partner Owen does one-on-one coaching. He's really the godfather. He's 72. He's been
around the block.
he's been around the block. He's trained with like, if these names don't mean anything to you, look him up. He's trained with Peter Levine. He's was contemporaries with Sue Johnson, who founded emotionally focused therapy. um, he studied with Ron Kurtz, who founded Hakomi. He studied Rolfing with Ida Rolf. He's an OG of like body based therapeutic practices that he brought together to create a practice that is specifically for men.
Outstanding. So I'm going to make sure that we include all your social media links in the Facebook group page.
Oh, great.
I want to make sure that people have that the fellows have every means of contacting that they possibly can, because I think again these conversations are important. Having these resources out there are critically important for men to be able to get the help that they need. And some of us may not even recognize that we need the help. So hopefully, somebody sees this and it's like, hey man, you know what? I think this might work for you. This might help you. You know, that's all. And again, my goal isn't to be I'm not an expert. I'm just a dad who's been through a bunch of stuff that, I know other people are going through, or I've seen other people go through it, so I want to limit the pain and difficulty, at a later age, you know, versus where you get it done early on, where you can really fix relationships. I have far less time, in front of me than I do behind me. So I want to make the biggest impact I can, for men, my sons, so we don't repeat the cycle anymore.
That's yeah, and it's never too late to start showing up as more of
Yeah,
yourself. Your kids might be grown, but I guarantee you, if you start showing up differently, they're gonna go, "Oh, what? Dad is, huh? Okay, great. We get to do this now. We get to be more of ourselves too." You
yeah,
know, what's the expression? When's the best time to plant a tree? Was 30 years ago,
yeah,
but when's the second best time? Is
right,
today. So just jump in wherever you're at. We get guys in our trainings that are in their 20s, but 30s,
yeah.
40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s. It's never too late to start feeling better.
Well, you know what? I'm glad to hear that, and I think hopefully our listeners take that into account, that it's never too late. So, Duncan, thank you so much, man, for coming on the show. Listen, I'm going to continue following your progress and how things are going. Let's stay in touch, and
Absolutely.
again, I'd like to have you back on the show. And I don't know, maybe we can do a roundtable. I suggested this to another guest too, just bringing, guys on and just having a group conversation. And, maybe this is the start of something for some of these guys. Then you guys can, after the show, talk offline, and maybe there's something you can do for them.
Be great.
So,
Mike, thanks so much for
hey,
having me. This has
thank you
been
so
really
much
awesome.
for coming on the show. I'm looking forward to the next time we can talk.
All right.
All right, take care of yourself. Be good.
Thank you.
And there we go. Technology, I swear, man. Swear I'm editing the episode. I swear to God. Damn buttons.